I want to welcome Coach Donovin Ford-Hayes. Coach is the director of the Hartford Shockers and also now newly appointed head basketball coach at the Masters School. Coach, welcome. Appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell us about yourself, like your basketball journey, your history in the game, and then how you got into coaching. Like, what influenced you the most to get into coaching?
So I'm a kid from Windsor Locks, Connecticut, small town. Played varsity basketball there. Went on to play college basketball at Becker College, D3 level. Always been interested in basketball and competing at a high level. After college, always wanted to stay involved as well, whether it be, teaching the youth or even working with some adults, some men trying to get them overseas and whatnot. I started my basketball adventure by creating a semi-pro basketball team that used to operate in Plastow, New Hampshire. Um, and that was something that ultimately I decided that I wanted to continue playing basketball after college. So that was somewhat of an avenue to keep playing and to have some current film, and was able to start coaching through that. Um, Started to vet out some ideas of, playing and how it was working in terms of managing and owning a team, and realizing that that didn't really work well. So I decided to coach my own team, and then I relocated it back to Connecticut, obviously where I'm from, where we were in the East Coast Basketball League for about 2 years. Had some success there. Was able to recruit, a bunch of Connecticut players in the area, some Mass players, some players from New Hampshire. And we were able to have some success and, bring somewhat of a basketball community to the Hartford County area, where they can watch like a pro-am style level of basketball, if you will, where we won 2 championships there. Actually was, awarded Coach of the Year there in my last year, with that league before it closed. And then, it was deciding what the next step was, without the whole semi-pro thing. And that's something that wasn't necessarily working out logistically. We started to shift towards the academy approach, where we could bring kids in. And I wasn't really wanting to get into AAU quite yet. That wasn't really something that I was looking to do, but I wanted to be able to provide some sort of training, some sort of basketball development for kids that wanted to understand the game at a higher level. So we tried the academy approach, and then a lot of people were coming to us in terms of recommendations for AAU programs. And that's ultimately when I decided, what, hey, like we gotta get this started, because I can only speak so much on someone else's behalf, and I can't speak to whatever their experience is. So I wanted to have some say in it. So even though I've coached with several programs all throughout New England, I was with Mass Rivals, North Shore Sports Academy for a little bit, Mass Elite. Ultimately, again, just decided to do my own thing and was able to create my own program, and it's been growing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I remember the first time we met. I mean, I used to do the scheduling for Vertical. I've tried to give it that up a little bit. It's a little bit too crazy. But
Yeah, yeah,
man, you guys came on the scene out of nowhere, and it's like 25 teams, and I remember like 6 or 7 of the teams were all Donovan at the end. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what does he do, man? Like, I know what it's like. I think people who are not in the AAU world think it's easy, and you kind of get into it and you show up on the weekends and you're grinding. You coach 5 teams, 6 teams in a weekend. That could be 25 games in one weekend. And I've watched you coach. It's not like you're just sitting down, taking notes, having a coffee, like you're coaching. So, tell me like how it grew so quickly, how you got so many teams, and then also, how you manage your time and energy, especially on the weekends. I'm sure practices too, man. It's got to be a lot. I'm sure you double up a couple so you have teams that are equal. They could practice together, but that's a lot on the weekend.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of work behind the scenes that maybe people don't always see, or maybe they don't always understand. Um, I mean, as far as managing my time in growing the program, I fully invested myself to the program in terms of what it is that we are able to provide. And then obviously I wouldn't be able to do half the things that I do without the coaches that we have too. And that was always something that was very important to me, was to kind of vet out that process and literally handpick coaches. Um, I tried the whole Indeed post thing, and I did it like once, and I didn't really like the way that it worked out. Like I want to actually know the people that we are, putting in front of these families, so that I know that it's intentional. So understanding the coaches that we're bringing in, like who they are as people, has been like a crucial part of, what it is that I do. But also being able to understand that myself as a coach has become somewhat of a brand in itself. A lot of times people come to tryouts or whatever it is, like they understand that I'm there for the trial and I'm running the trial. And like most of the times, like they want their kids to be coached by me. Um, and which is okay. And like we have great coaches too. Like don't get me wrong, like they see our other coaches like in the trials too. Like they want that experience. And it's important for them to kind of like understand, what that is and what comes with it. And also to understand like I can't coach every team. Like obviously I'm one person. So getting them to kind of like see what it is and what's going on and what we're being able to offer. That's kind of been how it's been able to grow, is just kind of just being transparent, being professional about everything that's going on. But also giving them a quality basketball experience. Um, Letting them understand or letting them know that we have a good basketball IQ as far as like the coaches and like what it is that we're trying to implement. And a lot of people see the work in that, and a lot of people see the progress in that, and like that's ultimately why I feel that people come to us. um but as far as as managing my time and whatnot, like yeah, like doubling up on teams and practices is kind of a part of that practice, or a part of that, that process. um because again, like the numbers in practice improves quality as well, and I'm trying to get people to understand that, like if we have one team at practice, like, of like 10, 11 kids, and then, we have the multi-sport kids, and then all of a sudden you only have 6 kids at practice. Like, yeah, you could do the small sided games or whatever it is. But you do miss like the 5-on-5 concept. Like, say you want to go over your offense, you go 5-on-0, whatever it is, you go through your actions, and then you want to play against defense. Well, then you only got 3 subs, or you only have 3 extra players to kind of like go through that. And then that hurts the practice atmosphere a little bit. But again, you don't want to overload it with like 30 kids too. So like there is some pros and cons there. Um,
I
but
think I agree with that. I don't want to interrupt you, but I think the sweet spot, it's what a high school practice kind of comes out to. College practice, somewhere between 15 and 18,
right,
where you could do a lot of different things. And I think even in your full court drills that are 5-on-5, 18 guys is 18 players, very easy to incorporate into a practice. But you're right, when you have 10 or 11, unless everybody's there, it's hard to have a quality practice.
absolutely. And like the practices are more important for me than the games would ever be. Because your games display what you learn in practice. Like that's how it's always been for me. So I never really considered myself to be like your traditional AAU coach. Because again, like I pride myself in coming from like a higher level of basketball, a higher level of understanding. So everything is like strategic. Everything has intention. Like it'll never be a situation where you come to my practice and like we're just getting up and down playing pickup. Like it's just a complete waste of time. Because like I know that players can do that. Like I know that you can like try to attack one player and just go ISO ball the whole time. Like no, like we wanna have some intention, and I want to provide you with a higher level of basketball so that if you get to that next level, you just have a better understanding. So that's something that I've always prided myself in. And it's a lot of hours. I mean, I'm in the gym Monday to Sunday. We have our development teams, we have our select teams, whether you want to call it gold and silver, whatever the case might be. But scheduling, you know, because I coach on all levels of that gold, silver, select. I go from essentially April to the end of July. But again, like it's something that I love, and I've been able to kind of implement myself and plant myself into that. And it's I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, honestly. So it seems like it's a lot, but at the same time, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And basketball has become second nature to me, and I'm always learning and, studying the game, studying different concepts. And AAU has really given me a platform to kind of like test things out, like what works, what doesn't, across several great groups across, boys and girls. So that's something that has impacted me and like has been able to kind of give me a platform in terms of what I'm doing right.
Yeah, you could see it. I know it's what stands out to me about you and your program, following you on social media again from afar, but it is the technical aspects. You're always posting about different actions and a lot of stuff that is clearly teaching basketball IQ to players, which I think is great. And then also what I think is very impressive, and you could speak on this a little bit, you're always talking about values. I saw a post, I don't know if it was meant to be a Hartford Shockers post or not, but I thought it was just it was so right on point where you had mentioned, please tell parents, please teach your kids how to talk to adults. And I
Mhm.
thought that was so spot on. And especially for kids, I mean, just in life in general, but if you want to tie it to basketball and your recruitment someday and how you speak to adults, it's so important. So talk about that part of your program and what you're doing, because it really feels like your program is more than just, obviously it's way more than just a team getting together. You're teaching values, you're building culture um, on the basketball court, but then also off the court.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, because I'm stepping more into the recruiting platform when it comes to the master schools being at a prep school. Um, and I'm not saying that, players don't know how to talk to adults, but I think it says a lot about your character. When you can have a professional conversation with an adult, within a coach. And I think it helps with your stock market a little bit. Like when I can have a conversation with a young man or just like a young adult in general, and I can see that you know how to hold yourself, like I think it speaks a lot to like what you have in terms of your values and what you had instilled into you, whether your past experiences, your past coaches, your family, your parents. Um, I look for that when it comes to kids. Like I want kids of like high character. If you're talking to me as if like I'm your friend, I will still engage and have a conversation with you, obviously, being the professional that I am. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, like I'm not necessarily sure if that's something that I want to be involved in. But obviously, like when it comes to AAU prep school aside, that's something that I have to be able to teach. Like I have to be a mentor in that sense as well. Like if I catch, one of my players speaking to a coach or even their mom or dad a certain way that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, I have to check that behavior within reason, obviously, because that's something where if you have like that relationship with that player in terms of being a mentor, like you can kind of like step in and say, hey, like you shouldn't really be doing that. But that's more so what it is. That's more so what I've been about. Especially the young boys. Like they really have to understand like they have to have a certain respect. For whether it be the parents, their guardians, or just coaches in general, adults in general, like there's a certain way that you have to hold yourself. And that's basically that's what my program is built on, is in terms of just accountability and discipline, and that goes so much further than just basketball. um and in order for them to kind of like understand that, you have to be able to put it into perspective and be able to elaborate and explain what that means. So a lot of times, like even in practice, like I'll pull my boys aside, like I'll bring them into a group and like we'll just have like a conversation about like real life scenarios. And like I know that maybe they don't understand that right now because mentally like they're not able to think to that capacity because they're so young. But at some point in life, like that might resonate with them. Like they might understand, like, oh, like this is what he meant by like having this conversation. And that's always just been the goal for me, is just to impact young lives and even families too. And give young kids like a safe space to kind of like be free and think freely and question freely, without hesitation. Uh, Obviously, we're using basketball as that platform to do that.
Yeah, which is a good place to start because that's what they're interested in. So
Yeah.
it really gives you an opportunity to connect with them and a stronger voice for them to listen to. So talk about the master school. So you have obviously have Hartford Shockers,
Mhm.
and you're building this program. And then we saw the announcement come out that you're going to the master school, which I think is a great move, um, personally. But talk to us about that decision and a little bit about the school and then what you hope to build there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to meet with the master school and kind of go over, essentially what my plan was. Um, and meeting with them and kind of like having multiple conversations, like we mutually like came to the decision that it would be a good idea to bring in a higher level team. And obviously it's been a blessing because I live about 20-25 minutes away. I live in Bloomfield, Connecticut currently. So not too far from the school, but I wanted to be able to provide something at a higher level, where I can bring kids in and essentially make it my own platform, where I can have more freedom to do different things when it comes to NEPSAC basketball. Recruiting, is obviously a huge piece of that, being able to engage with multiple families, everywhere, really, whether it be Connecticut, whether it be throughout the country or even other countries internationally. I think that will open up so many doors, not only for myself, but for the players that are involved with the program as well. And to be able to kind of like shed light on what the master school is and like the platform that it is, like even though it is a small school right now, enrollment's low, having it be more of like a intentional, individualized plan when it comes to not only athletics but academics as well. Having classes anywhere from 10 to 15 students in your class where you have more access to your teachers compared to being in a bigger classroom, um, where people or families, parents want their kids to be challenged academically, or they need to get to a certain standard academically where they can do it with intention compared to having to wait to talk to your teacher or email your teacher like, hey, like this is what I need. I think that is good for people to kind of understand, and that's the platform that we want to be able to create. So even though that they're coming to a prep school or whatever it is, like the idea is to be able to go to college for free, and maybe that's not an athletic scholarship, maybe that's an academic scholarship. Like we want to have that same standard for both. Like you are a student first, and that has to be important. And we want the high academic kids. And that's the only I truly feel like that's the only way to go about it when it comes to the next level. Because, if your grades are set and you're doing the right things in school, like it's that much easier to recruit you. Um, Regardless of what your gifts are, regardless of what your talents are, it makes it so much easier to have a conversation with a kid that has their academics in order. So that was like a big piece in terms of why the master school was a good fit for me. Especially doing things with AAU and being able to see like what that is and stepping into like higher level tournaments, forming some select teams there and trying to bring kids in. I think having a prep school tied to that, it makes it more intriguing. Um, Not to necessarily say like, like that's, how we have to pull kids in or whatever it is, because that's more intentional when it comes to basketball specifically. But again, like if there's a kid that is in need of a platform, like I can now pitch these ideas. And then even if it's somewhere else, even if it's a different prep school or if it's a different private school, like I have those connections now where I can send kids to other people. Say it doesn't work out with me, or maybe like what I have isn't a good fit. Um, I truly feel in advocating for that and being able to be a resource to kids, even if it's not for me specifically. I just always wanted to be able to offer like a higher level of basketball. So
I think it's great. And I think it too, like you said, you've built something on your own with Hartford Shockers, and then now having the master's school gives you an ability to control and build what you want to see for maybe those higher level players as well, and becomes something that you get to do yourself, which I know personally I've enjoyed doing as well at Notre Dame. Talk to me about, you mentioned going to higher level tournaments, and the newsletter we put out this week, Vertical Hoops Weekly, was a lot about recruiting. And one of the things that we discussed in the newsletter was how important it is to go to live periods before your, I would say, recruitable time table or time window, which I feel for most kids is going to be there after their junior year, spring and summer, unless they're doing an extra year, a post grad year, or they've reclassed. But for most players, 16U, 15U, there's not going to be a lot of coaches watching your game unless you're at the highest level. But I think there is value still in, one, getting accustomed to that environment, two, the competition, three, camaraderie, travel. But what do you think, in terms of the costs associated with it, the live periods. I mean, how important are those to you, and how much are you guys traveling? Um, how much are you prioritizing this?
Yeah, I mean, that was always the next phase when it comes to a basketball for me, because we kind of started at the development level, with local tournaments, because I really felt like we needed to compete there first. Um, because I didn't feel that it was important to travel with some of our teams until we met a certain standard. So down the line, we started to get in some talented players, and we were competing at a high level. Where I decided, now it's time to get to some of these higher level tournaments, whether it be live period or whether it just be like traveling out of state, whatever the case might be. But kind of like to your point, like knowing that 15U, 16U, like maybe they're not watching your game unless you are at the highest level. But at the same time, for us, it was important to expose these players to that so that when they do grow through our, it's not like a foreign concept to them. Like we want them to be ready to play and perform in that atmosphere, in that environment. And that's essentially what we're doing right now. Even though we only have three select teams, like we're going out there, we're competing, and we're essentially making a name for ourselves. But at the same time, the players are individually making a name for themselves too, and that has been somewhat part of like the strategy is like to be able to highlight the individual, being able to blast out someone's name and like show what they can do, um, from like a social media standpoint. I think it's important that players and families are educated on how they can use social media to gain exposure as well, because you never know who's watching, who's looking at that stuff. So social media marketing education is part of that process as well. And typically I send out documents for that. Um, Making sure that your social media is clean, but also understanding like we do have a program where we're going to be able to do that for you too. Which I think essentially every program should tap into that. Like they should be able to highlight, their higher level teams, and that creates somewhat of a feeder system, for your development teams. Like, okay, this is what I'm striving towards. This is what I want to be a part of. Um, and then again, like just educating families just in general on what live period is and what the higher level are and what to expect, just so that it's all that information's out there, and that they understand what it is that they're getting into. And even like the showcase games for us was a foreign concept for some of our families, because you play your 4 games and go home. You don't necessarily have like the bracket play or all of the other things. So
Right.
like this is what's happening, this is what's going on. Like we did our first like live period event, this spring. We went to Atlantic City and there was coaches everywhere, and everyone's like, oh my God, like I've never seen this before. I was like, yeah, like we got to come in here and just be ready to play. Like we can't be, culture shocked and like be like super nervous. Obviously they're gonna have like performance anxiety because that's probably their first time playing in front of coaches, but at the same time it's just like at a young age, if I can expose you to that, like by the time you're 17, like you're gonna be well composed. Like it's gonna be like a natural thing for you. Like you're just gonna go out there and you're gonna go out and compete, and maybe you get what you're looking for. Maybe you can have conversation with coaches and kind of like let them know who you are, what your situation is, and like that's how we build connections with college coaches through these events. Um, Even just recently, a hoop group event, like D3 coaches were there, which is great for us, honestly. And then I had some D3 coaches come to our game, like, oh, who's this girl? And I'm like, yeah, like, like this is the situation. This is what we have going on. I introduced myself, and it was a great connection for us. Um, so, I mean, that's what it's more so been about. And even in like a short amount of time, like getting that exposure and getting them in front of college coaches like that they haven't seen before or that they haven't been exposed to has been like a crucial piece of this platform.
I think that's great. I think parents, educating parents on the recruiting calendar, understanding what events they should be going to, but they need someone to guide them. It's a lot of information. We have several high schools that did not participate in a scholastic showcase. For example, this past June, there's 2 weekends that the NCAA allows athletes to compete in front of Division I college coaches, and unfortunately, there's so many teams that didn't participate in those. And those were missed opportunities because you couldn't play anywhere else and be watched by a Division I coach. In fact, Division I coaches can only really watch you 5 weekends out of the year in AAU. And when you're thinking about outside of your school open runs, which I think are the most valuable times for coaches to come in and watch. But I think what you're doing is spot on. We agree. You get kids out there, you get them exposed because ultimately it's always a big audition, right? And you've got to be used to auditioning and playing in front of guys, coaches, um, so that when your time comes, you're ready to perform. And it's not easy. Everybody thinks it's easy, but it's hard, man. Like I find it harder too. Like when a kid knows they're being evaluated, and I always use the word evaluation with my parents. So you're being evaluated. You're not being recruited until you've been offered. And so that you're being evaluated at this point, and that's not easy. And when you know a coach is coming in to watch you play specifically, I find that to be the hardest time for kids, especially the first couple of times. So getting that exposure early like you're doing, I think helps a lot. It's a lot of pressure on kids.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me about, just really quick. I have a little lightning round, actually, if you don't mind. We'll go through it, and just one word, 2 word answers. But your favorite gym in Connecticut to play in?
Oh boy. Um, that's actually a really good question. Because we've been kind of like bounced around a little bit. Um, I honestly, I've been a pretty big fan of going to Southern Connecticut, and just kind of seeing the campus there, and then playing on their main court too. I think was a pretty cool experience for some of our players. But I mean, there's some other good like venues in Connecticut too, especially like on the AAU scene. Um, I think was it Hill House that you guys use as well?
Yeah,
Um,
it's been under
I-
construction. We'll have it back in the
right.
spring, but yeah, that
Yeah,
was a great venue.
it's a great venue because like again, like you have like multiple courts side by side, and like it's kind of just like high intensity. And like for me personally, I like coaching and having my players play in like a chaotic like atmosphere. Like I don't want the gym to be quiet and like we're the only game there, where it's kind of like almost like awkwardly silent.
So
Because
you like Mohegan Sun?
yeah, I want like a lot of action going on because I think it challenges the focus, it challenges the mental a little bit. Whereas like there's so many different things going on, like you have like a crazy play going on the other court, and like everyone's screaming, like, and like you're trying to focus on that, but focus on the game at the same time. Like I really have been able to use that as kind of like a learning lesson. Like right now, like you need to be able to stay in the moment. Like you can't remove yourself from the moment, and that's something that happens in game as well. If like you're so focused on like your mistakes and what's going on, you're dwelling on it, you're harping on it, you've removed yourself from, because now the next play has already happened. So being able to use that as like a teachable moment in like a chaotic atmosphere, like I think it only helps develop the mind a little bit so that they can kind of just like pinpoint their focus on something. Um, so that's been, I would say those are probably like the best places in Connecticut to play so far.
All right, most underrated skill.
Oof. Most underrated skill. Um, I would say communication. Like I don't I don't think players truly understand how important communication is. To be, because it's a team sport. Like you're not playing as the individual. It's not one on one. So to have a team that is in unison, like in sync, and like everyone's on the same page, like you can only do that through talking. And all five players are talking on offense and on defense. Like that's a tough team to play against. So I would say,
That's a great one. I mean, yeah, if you have all five guys talking on either end, you're in business. I mean,
oh, yeah,
it's not easy to do. I mean, it's something you see at the college level. I think at the high school level, if you have an experienced team, you get them there. But even some of the best players, man, you're right. It's a tough thing. You got to keep teaching it. And I don't know about you, but I just try to teach like the simplest things. Say anything. I don't even care if it's wrong. Like just getting used to hearing your voice is a good thing. And it's hard when it's the coach's voice, especially in loud gyms. Number one, you're going to lose your voice, and two, you need them to play telephone a little bit. You got to pass the message on to the other guys. Like it's I heard one coach I was watching. Maybe I was reading a book or watching. Yeah, I think I was reading Larry Naga's book now, and he would say it was mandatory rule you had to call it your man 3 times. Like that was the rule. If you didn't hear it 3 times, he wasn't happy with the transition defense, and that made a lot of sense because kids will point once and say I got him, but did everybody really get that? Like think of how many times we have to say things to players. Saying it softly and loud, Jim. That's a great one. All right, how about this favorite drill?
Favorite drill. Oof. I mean, I'm a defensive guy. Like we do defense like through the majority of the practice. And a big thing that I like to drill is just full court shell. So because we play man to man full court. So we'll go 4-on-4 full court shell and go over essentially a run and jump style defense. Um, Talking about peel switches, trapping in the backcourt, when to trap in the backcourt, understanding essentially when the trap is broken to like who peels off and like who will run and get into the gaps because they have to understand that the important thing for us is stopping the basketball, right? And like the worst thing that you could probably see in basketball is somebody going full speed down the sideline, turning it to the middle and getting a layup. So now we constantly go over, okay, like how do we stop that? Right. So, and sometimes it takes for somebody to get in the gap, stop the ball, but then we have to drop and recover and rotate. So full court shell is something that we do every practice. And I think that's a non-negotiable for me. Like it's something that has to be done no matter what.
Love it. I love that you're focusing on man principles and running and jumping off the man. I think is great. It's a great way to integrate pressure without just using zone pressures, which we see a lot in AAU because you're teaching again basketball IQ, when to go, how to rotate back. You at some point you've got to get solid again and just play man to man. You can't just stay running and jumping. It may look like it to someone who doesn't know, but I think you know that at some point trap's over. Like we got to just guard, force a challenge shot, get a rebound, and get to the next possession. Because the best teams are going to turn over the other team 20 times. That would be a lot. But I've been on the other end of 20, and that's not good. So I know it's possible. All right, what a player every guard should study.
Oh, it's got to be Brunson. It's got to be Jalen Brunson. It's got to be. Especially after all of the media attention that he got in terms of not being able to win the big one at his size. I think it's got to be somebody or someone that everybody should be watching. He plays off of 2 feet so well, and is never sped up, never like just like out of character. Like he's well composed, and getting players to like understand like the balance part of basketball. Like that's someone you want your players to watch for sure.
I love that. That's perfect. One thing parents should stop worrying about.
Um, that could be a ongoing. I think the biggest thing for me is like not coaching your kid during a game. Um, and even if say you're in a program for the first time and you don't like what you're seeing, you've signed your kid up to be involved with the coach at the end of the day. Um, you shouldn't be confusing your kid because especially if you're not watching the practices, like you might not know game plan is, you might not know what the coach is teaching, and now you're trying to put your kid during a game and it could be the complete opposite thing, and now everyone's confused. So coaching kid during a game not only sends the wrong message, but again, I think it just confuses your child.
Great answer. All right, last one. Closing. Your advice to 14-year-old, a 14-year-old out there. 14-year-olds would probably be going into their ninth grade year,
Mhm.
right around there. What they're starting that high school journey.
Yep.
Their goals probably are in front of them, but the freshman tryouts coming up in a few months. So, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think my advice to a 14-year-old, would just be to be super coachable, be a sponge. Um, because again, like say you're going into like high school as somebody new and the coach doesn't know you, you have to find something to help yourself stand out. And I don't think you stand out by doing a bunch of things mediocre. Like when it comes to basketball specifically, like you have to be able to perfect one thing. So like when it comes to like your training, whether it be with like a trainer, a group, or a team, or individually, like you have to be able to master or perfect one thing so that you can stand out amongst the crowd. And I think that is something that players don't truly understand because they feel like they need to do it all. And how it is you don't. So if you can go out there and accept a role, even that comes with being coachable, having high communication, and being vulnerable, just being able to talk to your coach, like, hey, like, what is it that you think I could be doing better? What is it that you're looking for in terms of a guard spot, a certain position, just so that you can get a better understanding. I think a player that can come up to like have communication like that, I think it says a lot about them and like how involved and invested they are in the sport and the team, to get a better understanding of what they can do to contribute. And I think that goes a long way. So
That's great advice. I think one of the my favorite things that I get to do, especially this year, it feels like with the guys who just graduated, is have real basketball conversations with them. That's
mhm.
something that comes later. I mean, with these guys, it was they were a very mature group. It happened maybe a little earlier than some groups, but we talk about how they were able to. You have to start with role identification. That's a tough one for kids because they don't want a role yet. There's only one role they really want, but that role is hard to get to. So role identification, then thriving at your role, then building on your role, and I think when you get to have those conversations with kids after you've coached them for 4 years and it's like a real basketball conversation, like, wow, this is tremendous. It's rewarding
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. I had one today in the gym and it was just, it really does make you feel good. And I could say this without any doubt. I know we picked the right first guy to bring on the Vertical Hoops Weekly and highlight. Uh, Coach, you're really absolutely one of the smartest and most professional young coaches in the state. And it's impressive. I knew it a few years ago. I didn't know you well yet, but I already knew you were hustling. And then I was watching your games and I'm like, damn, this guy's like really working. Like just, you could tell. And then your social media, you're just doing everything in a great way. You don't need me to tell you that, but it's just to say that I'm impressed. And I think it's great what you're doing for the kids in your program. And I'm sure you're going to do the same thing at Master's School. So I appreciate you coming on and doing this with us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me and also giving our families a platform to play. I don't know if you guys hear this enough, but like obviously extremely grateful to be, involved with Vertical Hoops and form some kind of partnership there where we're bringing our teams in and competing the best that we can. So thank you for that.